Good morning, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of LiR Confidential with myself, Pat Barry, on lirmedia.tv. And we have our usual email for your comments. It's info@lirmedia.tv. And press the red button on the bottom right-hand side. It's just to subscribe to our channel. It's free of charge. Probably one of the only free things you'll get in the world today. Anyway, I'm delighted to have in the studio, remotely speaking, Professor Jack Anderson. Good morning, Jack, and welcome along.
So hello to you, Pat. It's the evening time here in Australia, but thanks for having me on.
It's exactly, and it's just summertime, as we were saying before we came on here, and we're going the opposite way. However, tell me, by the way, for people who haven't known Jack Anderson, he's now over Director of Studies Sports Law in Melbourne University. And of course, I mean, you have been busy. He's published widely, of course, as well. The legality of boxing, of course, boxing is very close to my heart. My dad used to be a boxer. Yeah. And of course, as a sport, in 2007, he published that. Modern Sports Law 2010. And an edited collection of landmark cases in sports law 2013. There's even, I don't know how you get time to breathe or have a life outside of all the activities and your teaching. I presume you get a time for downtime. But Jack, where did you actually grow up, Jack? Where are you from?
So I'm born and bred Limerick. So I'm from Doon originally, although we lived the first few years in Temple Braden in Palace direction. But I'm from Doon originally. Went to school in Doon, played hurling for Doon and football for Ula, and then went to school obviously in Doon CBS. So had a great education there, and went to the University of Limerick. Then did law, and in a roundabout way, then ended up in Belfast.
That was straight up law you studied. Law was your thing.
Yeah. It took a little while to get going, but yeah. I worked a bit just after leaving school. I worked a bit. I worked in a place, and I that's why I know Limerick City well. I worked in Don Dares. It used to be out there in Clare Street.
That's right.
I worked there for a long time. I remember, and all through college. So I know Limerick City well, and so that got me through college.
You know, Jack, as I was listening to there, what do you recommend? I mean, when people leave secondary school and they get their place in university, I think it can be a great help myself. I don't know, but I only had a university experience, very mature, very, very mature. But getting out in the world for a year or two, like something like I don't mean national service, but something like service to the community, getting paid as well before you actually settle down to what you actually want to do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one thing about Ireland with the Leaving Cert, you can be quite young doing the Leaving Cert, even sometimes 17, 18, whatever it is. So yeah, absolutely, to do something different. And I certainly got an education by working very quickly, and it served me well. But certainly, yeah. And then the other side, then, I'm teaching a long time now, but I always love teaching what they call mature students, because they're well able to challenge you. They bring totally different perspectives on it. And it's good. It's great for the class, and it's great for everyone. So yeah. I do. I think it's a good point, and I think it's something that we don't tell people enough. That they suddenly end up in a college or university situation.
They're not encouraged either. They're not encouraged either. Going from leaving. I'm not being negative. I'm saying going from your national school to secondary school to university, and then at the age of 24 or 5, you have your degree, and you're looking around and you say, God, is this life? Have I lived life? Have I an appreciation of what it's like to the price of a pound of butter and a loaf of bread and all of that kind of stuff, and stuff like that, everyday life. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's kind of each to their own in some ways, but yeah, definitely a balance. Now, a lot of the modern students, of course, given that they're paying a bit in terms of fees and all that, certainly here in Australia, they're all working part-time,
Yeah, I know my own daughter here, she worked part-time, when she was finished.
Yeah, and so did I. And look, it's no harm. It's absolutely no harm.
No, absolutely not. No doubt about it, Now, you got into the whole area of sports law,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've been involved when the GA here in Ireland set up its dispute resolution authority, whatever they call it,
Yeah.
You were involved in that. But I was trying to get a handle on the court for arbitration in sport. Is that the finals? I'm a professional athlete, okay?
Yeah.
And I have million dollar contracts, and obviously, if I fail the drugs test and if I really think that I shouldn't have, and then of course my second sample, the famous B sample you always hear about,
Yeah.
That turns out to be the same, and then I have two choices: take my punishment and move on, or is the Court of Arbitration Sport your final arbiter for you?
Yeah, that's your final way. So if you test positive for a doping substance, there are various ways you can appeal, and you can end up in the Court of Arbitration for Sport. And there's other, they do almost all sports disputes. So, and they often are present even at the Olympic Games. So, as a boxing fan, you'll have seen the odd amateur boxing situation where maybe the judging wasn't as good as you think it was. And sometimes they would appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, And
I often thought the officials should be dope tested.
Look, there's some serious allegations that have come out recently about them, involving Michael Conlan and all that. But, we can go back in history to amateur boxing. There
was been some appalling, so obviously wrong decisions. I take you back in Seoul Olympics if you're the boxing, in 88.
Oh, yeah, to Roy Jones Jr. Yeah. I mean, that
was something on an overall thing. I mean, the whole Olympics now is rife with drug taking. I mean, that's a given. I don't want to be too late. That's a given to me. I mean, I look at the Olympics now. I mean, I remember the 68 Olympics in Mexico City. I know you're probably too young to remember it. 64, I remember the great Peter Snell running 64.
Yeah.
After 1968, I think that my jaundiced eye took over from then on, particularly when you had huge contracts for shoes, for gear, for all of that.
Yeah, and I mean that's the problem that sport has. So that you're a fan of sports, and I'm a fan, and the problem that is if ordinary sports fans don't believe what they see, well, then they lose interest. You've lost them. So that's the big problem with dope. The other thing which is interesting, I've met a few Australian athletes who competed in the 70s against East German athletes or Russian athletes. They knew their opponents were doping and they lost out, So instead of, some of them are lucky they got a silver or bronze, but some of them said, I lost out on the gold medal and all that value to me because of someone who was cheating.
You had our own Sonia Sullivan who lost out badly to the Chinese, Let's call it spade a spade. Like they appeared for the Olympics and disappeared after it, I'm not casting aspersions on any one people. I'm not saying all Chinese, I'm saying those particular athletes, And really, I don't know what the story is. I mean, you have a professional golfer today who's failed for cocaine, second failure for cannabis, third failure for cocaine. He's number 5 right now at number. He's in the ranked top 10, and he's still playing golf.
Yeah. And I mean, the Sonia thing is interesting because her reaction to it was to train harder. And actually, she almost, and she'd almost say this herself, she almost broke down, if you like, because she overtrained.
You do.
But it wasn't a level playing field. It wasn't a level track, if you like. So that has an impact on them. Yeah. And I mean, look, the recreational drugs thing is we've had jockeys, we've had all sorts,
Well, all sports. Yeah. And so I I was reading a bit, I go to the court for arbitration sport, and I know the gig is up. I mean, really, I mean, if the person's A and B sample is cocaine ridden, we'd say, why would it go to the court for arbitration of sport then? Do you know, you have to lodge thousands and thousands of dollars to be heard and all of that, you know. I don't know. What would they be expecting some kind of leniency? Like, they know they're going to be banned. There's no doubt about that, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, it is. I mean, with these professional athletes, you know, they're making huge amount of money, either through prize winning or sponsorship. So, you know, in some ways, a 4-year ban, which is the usual, supposed to be the usual, that ends their career, really. So they're going to fight it and try and exploit whatever loophole or, you know, whatever they can. And they do various things. Say you know, they query the testing. They say it could have been something else, you know. And sometimes, look, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is a contaminated thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Lots of times it isn't. Lots of times it isn't, you know.
No, that's the exception. I agree with you, Jack. That's the exception, because obviously, look, I can't understand why they just don't hold up their hands immediately. Right.
Yeah, in a way, it's a good question, because in a way, the system doesn't really allow them. So if they hold up their hand immediately, they just get the 4 years. But if they try and argue then, well, it could have been this or it could have been that, mitigation, they may get it reduced. So in some ways, the system kind of tells against them, you know, in that way. So it's not surprising that certainly the richer ones will have a go.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I'd even contend that professional cycling has never recovered from the man, what's his name, Armstrong.
Yeah, and it's difficult because, you know, it's one of the great kind of European summer events, the Tour de France, and they show it live on TV here in Australia. But lots of casual fans just go, I'm not so sure, which is a pity, you know.
It's terrible. I love it. I mean, we used to have the Nissan Tour of Ireland for years, you know, with Kelly and Roach and their pomp and all of them, you know. And it was so fun. I know, you know, Cork City, up Patrick's Hill in Cork City.
Yeah.
Straight uphill. Oh my God, we used to be at the top of it. And to see lads coming up the hill, I mean, it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah. So that's the thing. So every time you see a new record in athletics, every time you see a new record in cycling, that's the problem. That from a lot of people, the default reaction is, oh, I wonder, you know, and that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, and I think we should look forward to. I think really, maybe it's my age, but I think really sport itself does suffer across the board, no matter which sport you're at, you know. I mean, our own Gaelic games is an amateur game in Ireland. I know we're very into, but I mean, really, I can look at that, really, you know, I can look at that sport. I can look at soccer, really, professional soccer. I can look at soccer. I can look, well, I don't look at rugby anymore. I think there's too many problems in rugby, you know, really.
Yeah.
So, except the women's rugby now, the match last weekend between England and the New Zealand ladies. I thought that was a very honest game of rugby, you know. I thought it was very good, you know. But I don't know myself. Has television money, I don't know, has it taken over? Does it dictate people having to perform more often than they were used to, you know? I mean, for professional athletes, there's a huge demand on them, you know?
Absolutely. And rugby is the prime example, because it's such a tough sport that you know, once a week to play a game is, you know, over the season is plenty, you know, and obviously they've had the issues with concussion and all that stuff. But even in a city like Limerick, and I would see it, you know, we see it here, you know, parents are going to kids, oh, rugby, are you sure? You know, and which is, you know, and like we're born and bred Limerick, who grew up with us, you know, remember it and like it still, you know, still watch, obviously.
It is, it's still a huge fan.
Yeah, but this is an issue that, and the issue becomes players playing repeatedly, you know, and so that those injuries are something to look out for. Yeah,
and that one, the legality of boxing that you published in 2007. where did that come from, Jack?
Yeah, so I like boxing. My dad got me into boxing. I think in the first page or so of that, I kind of remember. I think it was Larry Holmes and Muhammad Ali was the first fight I ever saw. Ali was going over the top at that stage.
He was.
He was well gone. But I remember it because, and I remember, and I've always had the interest in boxing and still have the interest in boxing, amateur and professional. And I get that from that very much so. But, you watch it and you love it. But sometimes you watch it and you go, oh, God, the physicality of it, obviously, but also particularly with the professional boxing, how some of them are treated, in the sense that they give all the effort, and at the end of their career, where does the money go? And I was interested in that. So I was interested in the two things inside the ring. How do we kind of tolerate it in some ways, and outside the ring, how do we tolerate the fact that often the poor professional boxer is left with nothing, no pension, no insurance, no cover,
And that's been sad. We know all the sad stories in the history of boxing. You're spot on there, Jack, and I mean, really, as you said, they take all the risks, and sometimes the odd time it might end in a fatality. But I saw 4 bare knuckle fights. Of course, they weren't legal even when I was growing up. I witnessed 4 bare knuckle fights. And I said to myself, whatever they're getting for that, it's still not enough, It's horrific. I mean, the injuries you can do in that, I can see, of course, John L. Sullivan, we did a little feature on him, funny enough, a couple of weeks back. He straddled both the bare knuckle and the gloves, John L. is Irish, of course.
So there's a connection with Aberdorney and Don Kerry, and
his father was from Aberdorney, and his mother was from Westmeath. Actually, he got his physique from his mother, because if you see a picture of them, she was the big, strong woman. And anyway, that's by the way. But John L. was, I suppose, the first superstar.
He was really, the first modern champion, and even Tyson Fury, they trace a lineal championship right back from him, Fury, to John L. So it's amazing.
I actually like Fury. I like Fury.
Oh yeah. Well, he's the best of the current lot. He's like, people underestimate how good a technical boxer he is. Like he's massive. He's massive.
He's big.
He's big, but he can box. He can.
I was going to say that, Jack. He can box. People. He's not all pushing and clinches and hugging you and pulling you down. I mean, he showed it. He showed the resilience of himself and the courage in the last fight with Wilder. Deontay Wilder.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To get up, even he showed it in the very first fight when he was knocked down in the last round. I was saying to myself, if he was counted out there, you can imagine where he'd be now.
Oh, absolutely. This is the thing, So, and Wilder has such a right hand, so unbelievable. But he kind of outboxed him, But it's interesting, Obviously, Tyson Fury has said a few things that he shouldn't have said, and he can do a few things, and you just kind of go, oh wow, But the one thing about boxing is, it does do at a community level a lot of good. And people underestimate what it does.
The amount of well-being and the amount of positivity in the community, I mean, when you look at, we knock politicians a lot, and sometimes it's very deserved. When Kelly Harrington won the gold medal that time, I mean, one of the boxing clubs she used boxing still hadn't a toilet.
They
were for a grant to get a toilet. Really, that kind of thing, Jack, annoys me. I went up.
Absolutely. And the good that it can do, and how she represented Ireland and her community and all that. And now, but they have to kind of come up.
She was a breath of fresh air, really, really. Her attitude, the whole demeanor about her,
I think I watched most of her fights live. They were on a good time here. because the Tokyo's is kind of the same time as us.
Well, 4 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah. Well, there were kind of 3. They were very good for us, and it was. It's unbelievable. Like it's such. We don't win too many gold medals. We don't win too many.
We do not.
And I think she was number 1 seed, and she took on all that, the history and the favoritism, and she won. And she's a clever fighter.
Very clever. I mean, she sussed out Joe won in the first round.
Yeah.
I had the first round more or less even. Not because she's Irish. I just had it. It could be either way. But she really, really took her to the cleaners.
Yeah.
She took her to the cleaners, second and third round. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's very difficult with the amateur boxing now because a round can go away from you very quickly. Okay. But she kept patient and she got her scores in and she did her thing. It was good. It was good.
Well deserved, because Cork were playing Kilkenny on the Sunday of our homecoming in the All Ireland semi-final, and I was up in Dublin, but we went up very early in the morning, so I went over to her house. Where she lived. But I didn't want to be there with gawking with everybody. I was across the road looking, and that early in the morning, there was 3 of us together. And that early in the morning, there was hardly anybody around. So we went up to take a photograph of her house, And her brother came out to the door, and I said, "How are you? We're up for the match." We just said, "Oh, then." I said, "Come over." He said, "We'll come over chatting to him." His dad came out then. So we took a photograph with the dad and all. So they didn't, no bother to them, Fantastic.
Yeah, you'd be very, very proud of her. Very proud of
her. I mean, our attitude, as I said. But Anna Moore is on our podcast regularly, our sports podcast on Monday night.
Yeah.
And Anna is the mammy of Irish boxing,
Yeah.
She's a character Anna herself, She won't mind me saying that. My special guest is Professor Jack Anderson, all the way from Melbourne via Limerick, we hasten to add. Jack, the legality of boxing then, I suppose some of the contractual arrangements, of course, we know the mob, the mafia, the mob were involved in boxing right up to the 1980s, I would contend myself. I don't know, but Sonny Liston is a great example of
exactly. So I teach. One of the things we teach now is about how sport can be fixed or corrupt, and one of the things I do always in the presentations is show people that photo of Muhammad Ali standing over Liston. That very famous boxing photo.
Oh, iconic.
Yeah. And I kind of go to people, was that a fixed fight? In the sense that, did Liston take a dive? And you can make an argument, maybe. And that's an introduction then to how things can be fixed, And so that's one aspect of boxing. I'm kind of interested in the physical aspect of it as well, that, you're allowed the direct intentional infliction of violence and all this kind of stuff. I'm interested in it. And I'm interested from a boxing fan point of view. So therefore, that's the interest.
It's legalized assault from one human being to another if you want to be crude about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, When I see, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay Muhammad Ali was just, apart from Mike Tyson, the best heavyweight in my lifetime I've seen. Without it, Mike Tyson from 86 to 90, and Muhammad Ali. The rest of them I wouldn't give. And then Tyson Fury this day on, but Deontay Wilder himself is demoralized and shot. He should retire.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's the oldest story in boxing, where the last person who knows when they should retire is the boxer. And I think that's one of the things I was interested in as well, is who takes care of them. They've no union. A lot of these managers, promoters are very, very, strange. So look, it's a difficult one. It's a really difficult profession,
There's too many. There's too many. I mean, contracts. I mean, there's too many. There are too many expenses, unnecessary expenses attached to the purse. The purse.
Absolutely.
I mean, they said Fury got 30 million for the fight against Wilder, I mean, I'm not saying he deserved it, and I'm just saying that I wonder, did he really get 30 million,
Oh, no, that's kind of like your gross, and everyone's taken out of that, but like
Was there 4 or 5 million left after that? I don't know. I'd be very lucky.
That's the thing. And the thing then is, like a lot of these elite athletes, then what advice do they get? So they're young, they get all this money, but they have a long retirement ahead, and so that's interesting as well.
And getting back to the Court of Arbitration in Sport, I think obviously due process has to hold with anybody, no matter how appalling the drug taking has been. But I cannot understand how people are not banned from for life, particularly if there's 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 goes at it. I'm thinking of Gatlin. Is it Gatlin?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was shocking. Yesanimova, the swimmer in Brazil at the Olympics. I mean, to me, when I saw the Russian Federation Olympic team, that whatever they could cobble together left them into the Olympics. I mean, and the country is banned. The Olympic Committee in Russia is defunct, and they have a team at the Olympics.
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah, that was very dispiriting for everyone, because there was a big investigation done. People were caught red-handed. It was caught, and proven. They go through the process, and then they're still, they're under a technically neutral flag, but everyone knew they were Russian. So, and that is pretty dispiriting stuff for everyone. Yeah.
It was to me, and it throws a shadow, Paul, over honest people, because there are still honest people in sport and athletics.
Yeah. And I think that's the point, because if you think you're up against people who are cheating, doping, then you may feel obliged to do the same, and that's not what we want. That's not what we want.
No, it's certainly not. And you cannot. I'm not making excuses, but you cannot help people say, "Fake it, so they're all doing it. I'll have a go."
Oh yeah, I mean, look, that is it, and then it's particularly for younger athletes. The temptation may be there, and that's not what we want. Because sometimes they take things they shouldn't take, which are dangerous for them. And sometimes they get caught, of course, so.
I mean, there has been very few lifetime bans for drugs,
Yeah. I mean, so they tend to reserve them for 2 or 3 go. You have probably on the 3rd go. The idea is that if they get a 4,
the golfer there, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention his name. I mean, I don't want to be happy on him, but really, cocaine is not smoking a joint.
Yeah.
Smoking a joint recreationally into cylinders. That could happen to anybody. I'm not saying it should. I'm saying that could.
Yeah.
But cocaine is a definite. You have to do that. If you know what I mean. There's a difference between smoking a joint and taking cocaine, and then to be caught twice. I think it does little for the sport itself.
Yeah, I know, absolutely, and that's what they're trying to, to deal with, because the interesting thing then is, are these sports people role models? And of course they are role models, so that it follows from that.
Yeah, and my special guest this morning on LiR Confidential is Professor Jack Anderson from Melbourne University, all the way from Doon. A proud Doon man here with us this morning. Well, this evening with Jack. And thank you, Jack, for taking your time out. We really appreciate it, because the lads on the sports show, like myself, were ignorant of the Court for Arbitration in Sport, what it was. So you might come on our podcast some Monday night and put them right on it. We have Joe Waters on it regular. Joe is from Limerick as well. Joe used to play with Leicester City and Grimsby Town. Joe is living in Seattle now, but he's a regular on our panel. Joe is a character. He could tell us some stories. He played soccer when there was no protection for anybody, When you got the ball, you got rid of it quickly, or that you were in serious trouble,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Modern sports law. What is that? I mean, okay. I mean, I get a belt. I get assaulted on a football pitch, and I'm out of work. I'm out of I'm out of the game. I'm out of doing my job for months and months and months. What is the legal issue there? I mean,
Yeah, like it happens the odd time whereby you're injured. Yeah, you're injured, and maybe the insurance doesn't cover it. And see, you're self-employed. Might you be tempted to take a legal case? Now, what the courts say is, well, look, if you signed up for a contact sport, football or whatever it is, injuries are going to occur. So the question is, where do you draw the line between something that naturally occurs during a game or is an accident to something where someone really, does you, if you know what I mean, really, really injures you and deliberately does so. And on occasion, the courts have stepped in, but it's rare, but they can do so, because
there was a friend of mine, Jack, he got his cheekbone in an assault, a physical assault. He wasn't tackled with a boot, he was tackled with a fist. No ball there. He got his cheekbone, he got damage in one of his eyes, perforated ear. He got a savage assault by another player. I mean, really, that's straight up assault, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And this idea that just because someone's wearing a jersey, they can kind of, get away with it, or it's not. No, it's not. It's still, that had nothing to do with the game. There's probably no ball inside, no nothing. So there is, absolutely. Now, the question is, can you pursue them for compensation, which you probably can, but it's a long process. The other process is, would the guards get involved?
It's terrible, debilitating when you're like that, you're out of the game, and obviously you lost a lot of it. As you said, the legal process. Is it the same in Australia? Because here it's just...
The legal process would be very, very difficult there. And, absolutely would be difficult. So what you're hoping is...
There's rugby players now looking at a class action for early onset of early dementia. The latest was this hooker in New Zealand. He's 41 years of age.
Yeah.
There's a good few Welsh players as well. I mean, really, that can be connected. And there's no doubt they showed the scans of the brain and all of that. And as you said, it's professional sport. It's a contact sport. Much like NFL in America, where would they be legally?
Yeah, so essentially what they're trying to do two things. First of all, they're going to have medical care costs going forward. So they're trying to get compensation for that. The second thing is they're trying to say to the current rugby authorities, listen, love rugby, love the game, but have we got too physical? Is there just too much power within it?
They're giants of men, my God. Jesus.
Absolutely. And they're not only like giants, but they are, supremely fit athletes. Yeah. So, when first looking at rugby, it was all shapes and sizes. And that was right, and the idea was that when you got the ball, well, in Limerick, the idea was you kicked the ball, in other countries, the idea was you got the ball and you ran into space. But now the idea seems to be you run at the nearest individual, and it's all collision. They call it a collision sport now, which is, and you kind of go, well, where does it stop? And the thing is, for the players, it's not for anyone else. It's for the players. But the problem for the players is they just want to play. They're locked into their contracts. That they just want to go from game to game. But now you have players, and the players you're speaking about are not old men. They're young. They are late 30s, early 40s. And one of them was an English player. He's played hooker, and he played in the 2003 World Cup final, which they won. Johnny Wilkinson last minute drop goal.
I remember Johnny.
He said, I can't remember that final. I can't remember that game. And you kind of go, oh, wow. So there's a big issue there. Now, my thing would be like you, I'm not so sure a court or litigation will solve it.
No.
I think parties sitting down and saying, okay, how can we, is there some sort of insurance or redress scheme or some way of dealing with it? But litigation, I'm not so sure.
But what about this wonderful phrase, duty of care?
Yeah.
Now, duty of care. I don't mean to be laughing about it, but duty of care. There is duty of care. college, particularly college rugby, can be shocking as well, you know, as early as that.
And a duty of care all means really that you assume responsibility. That's what it means. So if you write the rules of the game and you oversee how it's played, you have a duty of care. You assume responsibility in a general way for the safety of everyone who plays it, you know?
Right.
So that's the legal issue. It's like designing a product. And if there's a small defect in the product and consumers are getting injured, well, then you should have designed the thing better. So it's the same thing with this, you know? So, but the issue is, how do we deal with it? I'm not so sure the courts is the best way to deal with. You know, I don't like this idea that ex-players who are quite ill haven't come up the steps of court and go in and give evidence and be put through the ringer and all of this. And on the other side, the rugby authorities having to defend themselves in public. I'm not so sure anyone gets anything out of that, except the lawyers. But
I think maybe, Jack, we mentioned earlier on about the rugby players, about the early dementia. As you said, you mentioned one thing, they'll have medical costs. I think stuff like that should not be a worry, no matter what, whether it's your national body or your club, whatever, if it's a fully professional club. Those are things that can be done without any hassle, really, you know, because
absolutely, there's ways of doing that.
Without any legality attached to it, because that's when the costs soar, as you know. I mean, really. Honestly.
Oh no, absolutely, I agree. Like you set up some sort of trust fund or whatever it is. And you get people to show whatever medical concerns they have, and then you meet them. You know, I think that may be the way to go.
Now we had some great landmark cases in sport. Mm-hmm. The first one that chips off of everybody's tongue is the Bosman ruling here on this side of the world. Now, for people who don't know it, are too young, I never heard of it. Do you remember or telling that to your students about the Bosman ruling? Yeah,
and like it's in a way it's a very simple thing. So, and the current students are really always surprised at this. So it's like you played professional football in the 80s or 90s, you know, and you'd have a 3-year contract with a club.
Yeah.
At the end of the 3 years, the club didn't have to let you go. They could wait until there was a transfer fee paid for you. So what you call self-accredited costs, are they your what we call in the old GA club? They had your registration. They had exactly. They had your registration. Yeah.
They registered you with the relevant body. Was that what we're talking about?
Yeah, or you just held on to it, you know, until someone else kind of bought you and bought the registration, you know. So right. And what they could do is they just keep you sitting there, you know. So it was an extraordinary thing, you know, and the clubs had the power. And what the European court said in Bosman is this is not, you know, you've got free movement. Once you serve your contract, like any
contract,
your contract is over. You can either stay if you want or look for it.
You're a free agent after your contract.
Yeah, the free agent. Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's always been the way. It was challenged before. There was an English footballer, George Eastham, in the 60s, who challenged it. They've challenged it before, but the issue now is obviously that players have the power, and you know at the highest level. So 6 months, all day. I mean, 6 months out from the end of their contract, they can go, listen, give me a new contract, or I'll just run this down and I'm off. You know, So it's completely changed. You know, so but that's the impact of it. That's employment law.
So well, they have, and I suppose it did change the whole game. It changed the whole professional club soccer team. You have a rich benefactor who can buy a club, can buy a team, and buy the championship here in Britain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, Newcastle, one of the great clubs, has just been essentially bought by Saudi Arabia. It's been bought. That's just bought.
Shocking, isn't it?
Picked it up off the shelf and bought it, and that's it. You know? It's
immoral. It's shocking. Morals don't come into this, I suppose, in sport. It should, but it's shocking. It's a shocking development. But money talks. It's going to further kill the game. You know, all the young lads who grew up with all the heroes in Newcastle, kicking the ball around the back streets, up around there. who are they going to be meeting? Are they going to be meeting a team of players, not to be racist or anything, but a team of players who don't speak their language, who is not immersed in the culture of Newcastle, who have no idea what the Geordie mindset is like? It's going to completely destroy the club.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for a lot of spectators is a lot of them want that, though. You know what I mean? A lot of them, this is the tendency. You know, they want to be successful, and they want you to buy that player, and that, you know. So, you know, Man City is an example of it, which is always the kind of, you know, the traditional man club, but now it is a world club, or whatever that means. You know what I mean? Yeah. So look, it's changed hugely. The Bosman thing changed a lot of things for Irish footballers. You know, we all know footballers going over to England, you know, and, you know, in the 80s and 90s, there may be Scots or Welsh there with them. Now it can be any nationality in the world in the academy.
It can. And with Britain now have gone out of the European Union, there's going to be a sea change as well in that regard about movement of players to the English clubs, you know, because there are some clubs now, I noticed, down in the Championship, where, I mean, they have to try and nurture local talent as well, you know. I know in a small microcosm of that here is in Limerick City, as you know, Treaty United went back to local talent from junior clubs in the immediate geographical area, did very well, were hammered last night, but so be it, in the playoffs, you know. They were beaten 3-0 by UCD in the playoff to the Premiership, but I think it might have been a blessing in disguise. I don't mean to be a killjoy, you know, because it was their first year on seeing the soccer. You know the Markets field yourself.
Oh yeah.
3,000 people packed in there last night. You know, it was just fantastic atmosphere, and well, the result went against them, as they say, but nevertheless, I think it's the way to go. It's the way to go.
It's you know, the buzzword is sustainable, and that's the word. But like, it's always the thing about Limerick. You know, people say, "Oh, it's a rugby town. Oh, the hurling All Ireland champions." It's a soccer town. It always was. Junior football was always is.
Junior football is huge in Limerick, and still is. You know, still is. Fife Rovers, Fairview United, all of those. You know, I mean, they've been flying the flag for junior soccer. They were tempted a few times to go up to League of Ireland, you know. Because they have the facilities, they have the grounds, they have. But I don't know why. Maybe I don't know why that is. Maybe they're wiser than I am. But it's a pity about Treaty United. But another year in First Division will do them good, and bring on some of the younger players that they have. In Australia, I suppose it's rugby in Australia, and it's the AFL, is it?
Yeah, so Australia is quite divided in geography. So Melbourne, the city I'm in, it's all AFL. It's all Aussie rules. We actually are. It's off season at the minute, so it's racing and cricket at the minute. So so that's good. The racing is good at the minute. And Sydney, Sydney is rugby league. Is the big one. Rugby league is the big one. Rugby union isn't as strong as you think. Like, it's hardly any presence in Melbourne, which is unusual. And soccer is big all over, of course, you know. But any sport you want in Australia, really, any sport.
And through the college system, I mean, women's football is becoming well known in Australia now. It's a professional game for women.
It's very strong and very good presence of Gaelic footballers in both the men's and women's competition, particularly the women's competition.
A lot of Irish women's players out there, you know, last couple of years, you know. And,
a lot, and are adapt really quickly, very, very good, you know. So
would there be opportunities now for women, and particularly young women, going to college on sports scholarships out there, you know?
Yeah, so Australia is not like the American system, where the American system would have sport. Australia doesn't tend to do that, so they kind of go direct into it, which is unusual. Yeah, it's unusual.
Well, programs like the United States, you know, where you can
No,
go.
it doesn't. It doesn't at all. You know, so it doesn't have that, which is
No.
unusual. But it plays just about every sport, you know, imaginable: netball, hockey, cricket, what you name it.
I know, and it's a pity because, I mean, obviously there'd be a natural thing. It's an English-speaking country, and it could be a place for particularly women to improve the women's sports in the AFL.
Yeah. I mean, they've really, you
Maybe
know,
Melbourne University might look at that now. We'll start the pilot.
yeah, they might. But women's sport is, you know, in rugby, in cricket, all sport, they're very, very strong. I mean, they're extremely strong, and they dominated swimming at the Olympics. You know, there's only 25 million Australians, but they
I must say, I love the Aussies' zest for life, to put it another way. I just love their attitude, you know. They've got balls, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, you won't ever meet an uncompetitive Australian. That's the one way to say it. But
And it's not how.
Yeah, sometimes. No, they're good. That they don't take themselves too seriously, except when they lose.
The swimmers, and I think the exuberance, the sheer joy of even coming third.
Yeah.
The sheer the attitude. That's what I'm trying to get at. I think.
Oh no, I mean, absolutely. The one thing about them is, when it comes to those things, they plan, they work, and they train extremely hard, and then they will be competitive. If it comes down to the last 5 meters, you bet on the Aussie. Yeah, bet on the Aussie.
I just love their attitude. I mean, they're after the Irish athletes, they'd be my favorite to follow in the Olympics. You know, with any event, and their supporters they're all one. You know, they're all one for it. You know, and it's just fantastic. With the lockdown, Jack, you know, we've heard some horrific stories from Australia. Obviously, we haven't been there, you know, about locking down people, and we had our own debacles. Some of them were necessary. I'm not saying they're not, for God's sake. But I mean, obviously now at this stage in Ireland, I think we're out of excuses for locking people up. You know, I don't know what way it is in Australia right now as I'm speaking to you. What's it like there, life-wise?
So Australia, Melbourne holds the record for the longest lockdown. So it's 200, I think we got up to 270 days, which, if you think of it, is 9 months. You know, the pandemic is basically 18 months old, half it has been in lockdown here. So, but now that vaccination is up to 80, even more %, the lockdown has been relaxed. Now it's only been relaxed in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but we're on the way back to normal. But it's been a long road. I mean, I think there were 6 lockdowns.
What about going into restaurants now and cinemas and pubs and all of that right now?
Yeah, so they're slowly opening up that. You still have to, in some cases, wear a mask. And you would have to be double vaccinated, all those kind of things. But, you know, otherwise they're beginning to open up slowly but surely. It's coming into our summer here, so kids are going to be off in December. January's basically, everyone's off in January because it's so hot. So we'll be well open by then. And you know the way humans are, we tend to forget pain very quickly, and we look forward.
I mean, there hasn't been many deaths in Ireland, you know. There's very little deaths in Ireland from it. I don't know how. Well, we're an island, I suppose we'd have that advantage over a land mass. But of course, it's Australia, there's hardly anybody living in it. But I mean,
no, and also they locked it down. You know, they completely locked it down. So it's only in the last week or so that people have been allowed back, fly out and in, really, to any extent. So. You know, from my perspective, we book flights to go back in June of this next year, and that'll be 3 years since we've been home. You know, so there's so many Irish people like that. Yeah.
But that's a long time now. All right. I suppose time. I mean, 2 years. There was nothing happening for nearly the guts of 2 years. You're right there. It would be 3 years, of course.
Yeah. So we're
going back next summer, next June. I assure you'll have to drop in and say a quick hello. you know, and a couple
Oh,
of
no
teams.
problem at all. No problem at all. Hopefully, you catch a Limerick match and.
And oh yeah, I mean Limerick, that hurling team. Obviously, I mean I'm from Cork originally, so for my sins, but
yeah.
I mean we've had our days. We won't.
Yeah.
We know what it's like to lose and to win. So
Yeah.
no
Definitely.
I won't say it makes no difference. No one likes losing, but that Limerick team, there are counties who produced. It's just like the Offaly team in the 80s, the hurling team.
Yeah.
You know, the bunch of guys. You eventually get a good bunch of guys together, and they're all in sync. I'm saying, I'm not being a doomsday, but Limerick hurlers, but I mean really, it's an amateur game at the end of the day. They're young men, and they will be getting on with their lives as well. So once they're on top and once they can compete, I would like to see them do 3 in a row, but every year more difficult, as you well know, you know.
Oh no, every year. I mean, that's a great thing for Limerick. First of all, it was planned. Like this was planned, which is great, you know. And then everything came together. Kylie came on board, and you had a good team, and everything went well. But that's great from a Limerick point of view because, you know, we have had teams that have burst onto the scene, and then they, for various reasons, they go quick enough, you know. And this team, they're some bunch. They just want to keep going, and
phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, all of them, you know. And there's a good Dune presence on it as well, which is great.
Absolutely.
But look, it's going to get harder all the time. Shefflin is in Galway. They have huge talent. You know, it's difficult. As long as we keep beating Tip, I don't really mind.
Yeah, that's my dad. My dad is still not going. He's 91. I mean, it was the one team when he was taking me to the matches on the bar of the bike. We just leave the village. We were out in North Cork. I remember my first match was with him on the bar of the bike. The whole village would be cycling from outside, 6 miles outside Mallow down to Fermoy to see a National League game in 1959 between that wonderful Waterford hurling team. Recognise that, and Cork. And Christy Ring, of course, playing, 39 years of age, still playing that time. Tom Cheesty, Art for all those people. Oh God. A league match was absolutely packed to the sideline. Right out, and all of us kids were put into the sideline, you know. We were all on the
But you forget that. That's what it's about. You forget that, you know. So.
That was fantastic. But the Limerick hurling team, I mean, obviously the All-Ireland final was shocking. I mean, shocking from the point of view of a contest. You don't mind the team losing, but you lose hurling. But really, the physicality from the point of view of the Cork team were absolute. Yeah. We had forebodings of it. I was expecting them to lose. I wasn't expecting them to lose like they did, but then when they did, I wasn't surprised either, you know. But the semi-final against Kilkenny, I know I was above at that match, and people forget they only beat Kilkenny in extra time.
Absolutely. You know, but like, you know, it was kind of set up for Limerick in the sense that Cork had this young team. You know, they got there was a lot of publicity, a lot of talk. You know, things are coming, which they are coming back. Of course, they're coming back for Cork. But you're running into one of the best teams that probably ever played it at their height, and you know that it happens. But we'll keep taking it if they can keep going for another while.
Jack, whether you were looking at the fixtures, the first game up for Limerick is against Cork and Páirc Uí Chaoimh in the championship.
Oh yeah. I see that. Yeah. Yes. I mean, look, but even next year with Munster, it's so competitive. I mean, it's unbelievably competitive. So
Waterford I tell you, Waterford have improved a lot.
I mean, they're all competitive. Clare will improve again. Waterford have got Tip, of course. You know, so like it's a humdinger altogether.
I think that Shefflin would have to clear out Galway. They'd have to clear the decks.
Yeah, I mean, they've so much talent, and they're big, good hurlers. The problem you always think with Galway is mentally, are they kind of pulling together, and then the odd time in a match they'll give away scores. You know, it's so unusual. You know,
switch off, isn't it?
It's so, but like he's a winner. He is a winner.
I mean, I would like to see them to be the first time in their history to do 3 in a row. Obviously, Limerick.
Yeah.
I mean, to be, I suppose, I know just all, you can't compare a team of the 2021 with a team of the 1970s. Really, the game is completely transformed, you know.
Yeah.
To do so is unfair to today and to the people of that era, you know. You can't put John Clinton on the modern day hurling team.
I know it's changed. Like it's changed even in the last 5 years. It's changed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's changed. You know, it's changed hugely. But their
Huge amount of
fitness level.
players. But Jack, did you notice yourself? You have a huge amount of players in there, 28, 29, and 30 retiring. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, because the amount of training they have to do, the discipline they have to do, you know. So when it comes to 27 or 8, you'd want to be on. You wouldn't want to be a sub. You know what I mean? You want to be on. And look, at the end of the day,
my own nephew now is playing. He's playing intermediate football with his club. He's playing junior hurling. He's only 20. He's playing underage, and he's playing with the big men as well. I mean, just the amount of games they play. I mean, I was saying to Barry, my neighbour, was saying, you'll have to give up one of them.
Yeah.
I said, you can't keep going.
Yeah, the issue with the GA is sometimes that they play a load of matches at one particular time in the year, and then they don't play any matches. So you know that makes it worse. Then you know,
and that was the problem with the Congress trying to change things. I know what they were trying to do. We understand they're trying to have, say, a team like Wicklow, a team like Kerry, like the Kerry Hurlers, a team like the Kilkenny Footballers, that they don't have one game every year where they lose by 30 points and they fold up their tent to next year.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, everybody agrees they have to change that, you know. It was like the old days when Christy Ring, people forget when Christy Ring was playing, you had your one game, and if you were beaten, you were gone.
Yeah,
you had to wait next year to win your medal, you know.
Yeah. So they want to kind of make sure that teams, even like the Limerick footballers, you know, I know Billy Lee himself, the manager, said it. You want to be playing as many matches as you can during the season against teams of your similar ability, you know, and then you build from that. You know, you build from that. You know.
Yes, and I think that it's an anomaly in the system where you can lose twice and win the All Ireland. You know, it's an anomaly system. I think that's not right myself on principle. Not talking about the nuts and bolts of it, you know, on principle. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think a champion should go all the way to the unbeaten.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's loads of models that you can do. I think that with the problem with the last Congress is they probably rushed it a bit, and they forgot that there's a lot of people still like the provincial matches. You know, so you know, but you have to take your time. They'll get there eventually.
No, so just before we finish up, Jack, I mean, is there anything in the pipeline, book-wise or publishing-wise?
There's always things in there is a bit on corruption in sport. There's always something, you know, going on.
I know. I bet you any money you're going to wait for the 3 in a row to be won. Then there'll be a milestone in sport, is it?
They will. Yeah. Hopefully I'll see it, because when we left, it was 2017. I'd never seen Limerick win All Ireland, and since I've been gone, they won 3.
So, I know.
Some people in my family have been telling me stay away, you know. So
I know there's nothing like the live atmosphere. Win, lose, or draw at an All Ireland final. I know losing is not easy, but really, there's nothing like it. I mean, it's a credit to GA that the edifice that is Croke Park now, you know.
Oh yeah.
I was at the All Ireland final in 1999, Cork and Kilkenny in the pissing rain, and it was the last final. And I was sitting in the old Hogan stand. It was demolished after that. But I got the stub of the ticket back from the man at the gate. I said, I want to keep the full ticket.
Yeah.
The old Hogan's, the last one. The old Hogan's. My grandkids can have it, you know. They can make money out of it. But just to mention, any more landmark cases that you wrote about that jumps out at you before we finish up? Landmark cases in sport, apart from we covered the Bosman.
Yeah, no, I suppose that there's always plenty of cases. The thing that I'm interested now is, you know, the amount of gambling on sport, you know. So the one thing I would remember, growing up, that if you wanted to put a bet on a sport, you had to go into the bookie. You had to go in with your cash, really.
You did,
And
look up.
go into the shop, and they knew who you were, and all this kind of stuff. And usually it was only on racing, really. Maybe a bit of soccer or something. But now on your phone, you can bet on anything. Like, you can bet on anything, and on and there's dangers with that.
There's no control, Jack. There's no control. We spoke about it on this program here 2 or 3 times now in different programs, formats, about the insidious of online gambling. It's shocking. It's
incredible.
There is no control over it. I don't know what to do. There's no control over it. You can actually lodge, believe it or not, you can lodge the deeds of your house on any of those online gambling as collateral.
Yeah.
You know that you can actually lodge the deeds of your house. I mean, that is just shocking.
I mean, it's so easy to access it through the phones, and it's not, it's not real money. It doesn't seem real money because you just keep going, putting it on the card or whatever. And also with those online sites, whatever about racing or soccer, they have other things like online gambling, bingo or poker or basically computer games, where it's very difficult for you to win, so it's interesting to see that,
But there's no control over it, I mean, they put down at the end of their Paddy Power, the biggest one here, gamble aware.
Yeah.
That means absolutely nothing. It's like drink aware.
Yeah.
Of course we're aware. We all know of alcohol, the effect it can have on you. Is that trying to make it better?
Yeah, I mean, Australia has had the same problem. And one thing that in Australia, when you look at a match now, the amount of sponsorship by gambling companies, literally, offering odds on the game during the ad, like it's just.
They do, every 10 minutes it flashes up. Leeds United are now 5-1, or they're now 2-1. I mean, it's shocking. My son showed me. I wouldn't bother looking at it, because to me, I think there should be no online gambling. It should be totally outlawed. But
it's just unbelievable, and the amount of
it's like alcohol to me. Alcohol shouldn't be sold anywhere, only in licensed premises.
Yeah,
they're talking about we have a drink problem. You can do it with the stroke of a pen. You can control it with the stroke of a pen if people want to.
And this is the problem with online. It's very hard to regulate it. But you have to have a go. You have to have a go. And the problem is, in Ireland, it's hard to know what's going on in Ireland at the minute, because they
you don't know. I mean, I can open an account now when I'm finished with this, with a made up persona, a made up email, a made up whatever, Well, you have to have a credit card or a bank card.
But the other thing where is, say you go in and you put on a deposit, they'll give you bonus bets. Now, they're not really bonus, but it's a way of hooking you in, and I mean, look, they'll say we're allowed to do that now, so we're going to do it, So the thing is, you have to be aware and have a good regulator to say, listen, that shouldn't be allowed this, that way. So, but
I really think that online gambling should be banned 100%, because you can go into a pub and get drunk and fall down on the ground, but online you can lose your house in 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of issues that need to be dealt with in Ireland, because Ireland, it's small, but gambling's big.
Gambling. I counted one night. When I was online on my laptop. I decided out of complete, not boredom, I said, no, I'll do a quick exercise. There was 48 different online gambling sites that I got up, no bother,
Oh, no problem at all. No problem.
That's only a drop in the ocean. And as you said, lodge €5, you'll get €25 in free bets. I said,
Yeah,
that's great, that's fantastic, thinking psychological, but it's not,
yeah.
as you said, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not. So there's loads of stuff. They call it know your customer. So the old betting shops, they knew who it was. They probably still take your money anyway, but they do. But you're right. That the whole online thing. And remember, it's only getting bigger. It's only getting bigger, much bigger. So it's a real
And
thing.
getting back to yourself, Jack, you're Director of Studies Sports Law in Melbourne University.
Mhm.
And are there many people now getting into that discipline?
Yeah, it's a small discipline, but there are, yeah, absolutely. Australia has a big professional sports. It has, like, Melbourne itself would have 10 AFL teams, which are fully professional, and a rugby league team, a rugby union thing. So there's a huge, even sports like netball have a professional element to them. So it's a massive sector and industry. So people are getting involved in it, it's very much based on contracts, but
Yeah.
there are specialized things with it, the hosting of events. So it's a growing area. It's not that big in Ireland, but it's getting bigger, but it's certainly big in places like the UK and the US.
And time, time is, we're over an hour and a bit now, Jack. Fantastic. We obviously didn't bore each other, which is a good thing. But I'm just saying that for the future, I'll tell the lads, we'd love to have you on some Monday night. We'll organise it anyway. We do our program. We stream it out live sometimes between 8 and 9 p.m. Oh God, what time is that for you? You wouldn't be able to come on there.
Yeah. No, well, now, not, yeah, it would be morning time, so it wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad. We can sometime we can organize it. Yeah.
4, 7, might be 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. That's not too bad, because
You'd be after your job then, would you?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Jack, it's been fantastic talking to you, and I really appreciate you coming on and
No problem.
And a fellow Dune man, always great to have him on. And he'll be around, lads, next year. He'll be over to, I suppose, cheer on the 3 in a row.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So from Professor Jack Anderson from Melbourne University, Jack, we did appreciate it. We do appreciate it. And until we meet again, Jack, and when we have this done, I'll email you on this show later on when we have it, all the bells and whistles on it for you.
Good stuff. Good market. Slán forward. All right. Bye.
And thank you very much again. And I know it's 9 o'clock in the evening there, or 10 o'clock or something there. It's morning time here. I'll have my scone, and you can have your beer. And you can have your beer.
Good stuff. That's the deal. Good stuff. Thanks for that, Pat.
Thanks.
All right. We'll be in
Bye-bye
touch. All right. Good luck.